Well, today's panel is on entrepreneurship, and we've got three excellent entrepreneurs. But what is an entrepreneur? It's someone who sees a gap in the market, looks at it, thinks he can fill it, starts with his own money, and then makes a success of it. Then there are others like Sam Balsara, who I greatly admire, who saw that the media industry in India wasn't up to scratch, decided he could do a better job, and in fact went there and made a great success. His clients are amazing. He provides great service, and therefore sometimes you don't have to have an original idea, but like Sir Richard Branson, you can take someone else's idea but do it better. That's also entrepreneurship. So here we are. Where are my three men? Come on, guys. So today we have three really amazing entrepreneurs. They are at different stages of their entrepreneurship journey. We have Phil Sidhwa, who in fact started his own business a long time ago, made a great success of it, and then exited. I hope, Phil, you made lots of money. Oh, great, thank you. The second person is Varun Balsara. He's our younger member. He actually started something 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it's just going to make a profit. And so he is now into the first, well, he's gone beyond the first step, but he is actually on the next part of the journey. And our last person is Hormurzd Vazifdar. He actually has just started something, it's pre-revenue. And so we have, it's a great way of showing what entrepreneurship is all about. A startup, someone who's who's nearly profitable, and someone who profited enormously from his venture. So thank you, everyone. But one thing they have in common, all three of them, is that they came away from their country of birth and settled in the West. So that's their commonality. So let's start. So all three of you, this question is for all of you, but tell us something about your family background. I'm always interested what makes an entrepreneur. Your education and your life in the country you lived in before emigrating to the West. So Phil, can we start with you?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate that. So just before I start that, I want you to just count 6 seconds in your mind. Okay, so every 6 seconds, a child dies of a waterborne disease. And I'm going to talk about that later. So that's been sort of the driver for my career. I grew up in East Africa as a young person in Tanzania. So I was born in 1957 in Karachi, Pakistan. Yay! Okay. And when I was 1 month old, I'm told, we moved to Africa. So I never got to experience it. My father is Bajan Sidhwa. His brother was a gentleman named Godrej Sidhwa. So Godrej Sidhwa was my uncle, and I understand he either tortured or tutored you, many of you.
Yes, we called him Nalla Kodaiji, because he came to our school and taught us Zoroastrianism.
Yeah, and Mom was from Udwara, and her last name was also Sidhwa. So they were both Sidhwas. Something wrong there, but anyway. So we landed in Tanzania. Dad worked for a big pharmaceutical company, an English pharmaceutical company in Pakistan, and he was sent to start up African operations for the first time there. So back in the day, Africa was very much white and black. So there were signs that would say whites only. This was before independence. So there was a great racial divide in Africa until about 1961 when independence occurred in Tanzania. I remember my life there until 1970 when we moved to England, when the political situation became so bad that if you're Asian or European, you really had to leave. They'd take away everything from you, and so you would have to leave as a tourist. You weren't allowed to immigrate out of the country. So we would, I remember Mom at the airport leaving with one bag for her, myself, and my younger brother. My dad and older brother had already been sent away to London. The company had transferred him. So with great hesitation and fright, and I remember the scene at the airport as a 13-year-old leaving when we were just about to board the plane, and the voice called out, "Mrs. Sidwa, please come to immigration." And she froze. And luckily we had a friend who worked for Air India, a gentleman named Philly Dastur, who said, "I'll look after it." And he looked after something, and we managed to get on the plane to Nairobi. On the way to Nairobi to fly to England, to London, the pilot comes on, "We've got a mechanical problem, we have to go back to Dar es Salaam." So there was another case of, So the stories are about how our parents and how we appreciated them leaving these countries for their kids. They were very comfortable there. We saw a lot of nice life, beaches and climbing coconut trees, and everything was wonderful. But there was a huge divide between the Asian and European populations and the African, the black population. And that troubled me as a youngster. We wouldn't get fresh water. Water was rationed, even in the city. You could only get water between 7 a.m., no water between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. because it was allocated to industry. And so Mom would fill up buckets of water and stuff like that. And many of you here are from Kenya and Uganda that know what I'm talking about. We left in 1970, and we came to Canada then in 1972. And I did my studies here. I got my university education at the University of Toronto. I'm a biologist by profession. And we'll talk more about all of that later. But the science of life that our religion also taught us. Mom and Dad were very religious, and we had to sit through those lectures of Dad, the boring ones at the time, and that brought us to where we came to in Canada. So that's kind of the little bit of background.
Thank you, Phil. Hormurzd, how about you?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Hormurzd. I have to first thank you, the organizers, for having me here on the panel, and also later I'll be giving the pitch. So I thank you all for inviting me to come all the way from Australia. So before I went to Australia, I was born in Calcutta, and that was in 1959. My father just got a job in Jamshedpur in Tata Motors, what is now Tata Motors, then called Telcos. He is a chartered accountant by profession, and he got a job there. So when I was born, I think I stayed with my grandparents for 6 months, and then I moved to Jamshedpur. So I did my schooling in Jamshedpur, one of the nicest towns you could ever be, and we had the opportunity to go back to Jamshedpur a few months back. I took Anaita, my wife, for the first time there in our married life. And so growing up in Jamshedpur, a small town, 400,000 people in those days, we lived like family. Everybody knew everything. If I did anything wrong, next day my parents would know what I had done. There was no secrets in that town. My parents knew everybody. My dad was in the association. Being an accountant, he was an auditor there. He was the treasurer. So he did years of service out there. And I did my schooling there. But Jamshedpur, unfortunately, didn't have a great college or university culture. There were a lot of strikes in those days. As one of my friends related the other day, they would put a knife on the table and say, "I will open my book and do my exams." Exams used to be called off. They were classes used to run years late because of all these problems. So anyway, my parents sent me to Pune. So I did my graduation from Ferguson College, but I went to Wadia College to actually do my studies first up. So Pune is second home, and it became my second home, and my parents transferred to Pune later. I did my undergraduate degree in physics, and after that, I went to Bombay, and I got a part-time job while I was doing my diploma in computer studies, and I actually sold Perfect Placement. The name of the company was called Perfect Placement, and I actually sold jobs, walked company to company to get people placed into whatever jobs they may want. In those days, there was no Seek.com or any other job boards where you could do advertising. And I did my computer programming there, and then I got a job in a mining company. And that mining company was not a great place to work, let's put it this way, but it paid for my bread and butter every day, paid for my rent. And I also did my management degree there at the same time, again part-time. And I was transferred then to Hyderabad. But in the meantime, in 1982, I saw an ad which said Australia needed people. And I applied. And the guys wrote to me and said, you've just graduated, you're a new graduate. Sorry, we can't take you, but we give you a file number. That file number was a savior for me. So, and they said apply after 2 years. I didn't apply after 2 years, and I said I'll let it go. In 1986, when I was in Hyderabad being so hot during the day, we had to build a factory to do some of our grinding that we were mining. And that factory, we could only run it at night, one, because of power cuts, and two, it was 44 degrees. And so we used to run the factory at night. So being a manager, I didn't work. I only supervised the job. And I was reading this newspaper, and they said, Australia needs migrants. And I pulled out the typewriter, pulled out my file number. I had my file number in my wallet. That was my thing. And I actually wrote out a letter. And lo and behold, they sent the application papers to me. I filled it up. The rest is history. So I went to Australia. That's
Great. Thank you very much. Now, my young entrepreneur, tell us something about your family background.
Hi, my name is Varun Balsara. I promise you my story is way shorter.
Sorry, Varun.
I would expect that.
So I was born in Bombay, Mumbai, India. Up until the 8th grade, I was an extremely naughty kid. Didn't really care much for studying and all of that. Later on, I found out the reason why. I struggled with dyslexia. I had a learning disability, and then I changed schools to go into an international school. Something really flipped in my head. I till today don't know what. I think it was my teacher's brainwashing me to create a new impression. That was the flip for me. I became an extremely hyper-competitive person. Some people also call me very serious. I sort of embodied that, and eventually I sort of started doing pretty well in school because I started focusing. I got the help I needed. And I was always told to work twice as hard because I won't get it the first time. And so that maniacal discipline carries on even till today, even though I've got the remediation I needed. In school, leadership was it came very natural to me. And so, I loved starting up things even back then. Went to university in 2018 because I got rejected from a lot of the US universities. So I landed up in the UK. And it worked out. So in 2018, I started my first company. It got acquired by my university in 1.5 years. I went on to build an Apple Top 20 podcast in...
Right, Varun, at this point, I'll ask you to stop because that's my next question.
Okay.
So hold on.
Yeah.
So I will ask each of the panelists about their career and the circumstances behind starting their businesses. So this is very important for all the youngsters here. What made you start your own business, considering you were both in successful jobs, with nice monthly salaries? What made you start? And which is a very precarious career, being an entrepreneur.
Do you want me to start?
Yes, why not?
So in 1981, I graduated from university, and my first job was with the regional municipality of Halton. It was a government out Oakville, Burlington, all of that area. Today's population there is about 500,000 people. And I worked in their industrial waste department. young guy coming out, science degree. And I had to go out checking out industries that were dumping things down the sewers, had to climb down sewers as well to take samples, did all of that stuff around industrial waste and water. And all along I had a passion about water, about the water business. And I knew that, and we're going back in the 80s, so regulations hadn't been fully developed. Environmental compliance hadn't fully recognized itself. There was a lot of environmental activism going on. And I figured, there's got to be something better. There's got to be a better way of doing things than the way we are now. In 1988, about 7 years later, I had enough of government, and I didn't see any future there for me. As a young guy, I'd started a painting business, and I did whatever I could to sort of get some pocket money and do things on my own. So in 1988, a friend of mine and I started this company called TerraTech. Terra means earth, and technology around that. And what we decided to do was go into the wastewater business, so in the poop business. Okay, and this is well before lunch, so we can talk about it. Okay, so I've done that for 35 years. And what we did was we developed a business model where we would manage the waste from municipalities. I'm going to give you a few statistics here. Toronto's wastewater treatment plant, the main plant that treats Toronto sewage, treats 250 million gallons per day. The biggest plant in the world is in Chicago. Anyone here from Chicago? Yep, Chicago. The Stickney water pollution plant in Chicago treats 1.5 billion gallons a day. So the main sewer pipe coming into the Stickney plant is 35 feet in diameter. So about the width of this room in diameter. Okay, so that waste comes into the plant. It's biologically and physically treated. There are no chemicals added. And at the end, there are two parts to it. There is water, which is chlorinated and discharged back into your lakes and rivers as drinking water again. And the end product, the solid part, is what we call biosolids. Those biosolids are extremely rich in nitrogen, phosphorus, organic matter, things that farmers and the fertilizer community really, really loves. So that was the nature of our engagement. So in my time, we started the company in 1988. We sold it in 1999 to a company called Azurix, which was part of Enron. You remember Enron? Those really bad guys. They decided they wanted to go into the water business, so they started this company called Azurix. Azurix was on a rampage, going by everybody and everything, right? So we sold to them, but 2 years later, Enron was about to go down, and Enron sold Azurix to American Water. American Water is the largest water utility in North America today. Their market cap today is about $38 billion. And so I became an American Water employee. They wanted to keep me on, and I became the president of their North American waste operations. And then 6 months later, Enron went under, and American Water kicked themselves as to why they spent so much buying Azurix, right? So I stayed with them until 2013, so about 14 years. And then the corporate life was getting to be a little too hectic. Every quarter I'd have to go to board meetings, and you sit and listen to all the nonsense that goes on. Along the way, American Water gets bought by RWE from Germany. RWE is the world's largest electrical utility company. And they figured that the way little electrons move through wires, water must move through pipes just like that. So they said, we'll buy the biggest company in England and the biggest company in America. So they bought Thames Water in the UK, American Water here in North America, and that was a flop.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah.
And they've made a mess of Thames Water, I can tell you. Hormurzd, tell us something about your career and what point you decided you're going to jump ship and start your own.
So jumping ship was sort of forced on me, but I'll get to that in a minute. Thank you, Shernaz. What happened was I I finished off where I went to Australia. So when I went to Australia, I got a job with what was then called Telecom Australia. And my degree was not recognized, so I had to start at the very lowest level in the organization. And I worked my way up. A lot of hard work. So I started as a front of house operator, took calls from customers, went into specialized media broadcast. That time they had outside broadcast. So if you had a venue like at the MCG, for example, to talk about the Melbourne cricket ground, you need broadcast for Aussie rules or cricket, we would do that. So that's where I went to. And then after that, I climbed the ropes. I implemented a few big IT systems in Telstra. And by the time the company name had changed to Telstra. And I rose up the ranks as we went along. At one time, I was on a restricted trading list when we had the IPO, when Telstra, and I worked on the first IPO that Telstra had, which was a huge offering that we made to the public. And it was heady days because that was, we were talking to analysts, doing all the big data stuff that we talk about today, and running forecasts, etc. And from there, after that, we had management change, and of course, as management changes, and if you don't say the right things, or they perceive you not saying the right things, or you talk honestly, you get shunted. So my career moved sideways rather than upwards. But nevertheless, I did some very interesting things. In that time, I managed a $5 billion revenue portfolio for one of our largest products, which was really, really hard work because you had to keep the revenue going, and each year we had forecasts that we had to give to the market, etc. And from there, one day I was called up by my manager and said, Hormurzd, we have a problem. And I thought he was going to shunt me out the door because I didn't get along very well with him. He loved my work, but he hated my guts. So, because I would call a spade a spade. And he said, Hormurzd, I'm moving you out of products, but I want you to be in procurement. I want you to manage these huge contracts. So these contracts were for SIM cards that we all have in our phones, for phone cards when you used to use a phone, pay phone, and for phone away cards, so cards that you would use before mobiles became ubiquitous. And I was given the contract to manage 3 vendors, and they were ripping us off left, right, and center, being Telstra, the largest company in Australia. They couldn't care a damn. They would take us out for a ride. And I did some analysis, did some benchmarking, and we brought them, in the 5 years that I was in the role, and along that time I did other things, we brought the prices down by nearly 60% on that. So my budget looked very good, my bonuses were good. And then I moved into managing warehouses. So I managed 3 large warehouses for Telstra, and we then consolidated it. But what took me by surprise and where I started my business was one day we were in this meeting, managers, me talking to you, and I'm sitting in the audience, and I don't see my name on the org chart. My staff and I didn't have a name. And it caught me out by surprise. And I thought maybe it was an error, but I realized there was something wrong. So I walked up to him and said, what's wrong, Mike? And he says, oh, well, I didn't tell you. I said, thank you. And that was a bad taste. That was 22 years I worked with that organization, and that left a very bad taste. So the day I left, I said, I'm going to become a mercenary. There's no loyalty. So I do consulting now. So I started Vazifdar Consultancy. My name was my brand. People knew me in the market. It was hard work though, okay? Though people did know me, it was hard work. And I moved into IT consultancy. So that was my first foray into, so now I work for money. Okay.
For you. I'm glad you work for money. If
somebody gives me more money for the hour, I'll switch jobs.
It's only for those who doesn't work for money.
So no, it was just a wake-up call for me to say loyalty is not everything.
Agreed.
And then after that, I started my startup, which is Verified Change, which is I'll talk about it.
Talk about next. Now I know you're going to have a very short story to tell us, Varun.
I always get the short end of the stick.
No, you're just too young.
No, but what? Yeah. So what? Quickly, so building off of what I just said last time, I started my first startup because I was super lonely at university, so I needed to find friends. So I built technology and built a matching algorithm. Scaled that pretty quickly because apparently I was not the only lonely person at university. And that got acquired by Warwick University, which is in the UK. And then through that, I found my co-founder, who I still work with today. At the time, we built a podcast that got into Apple's top 20 charts. It was called The Human Entrepreneur. And we then started consulting other people and other businesses on how to run and grow online businesses, such as a podcasting business. And that's where we got the idea of Let's Level Up, which I'll probably be talking to you about in a little bit. And it's gone from one problem to the next, and I just love solving problems with a dedicated group of people. And as long as I can do that, whether I can call that my own or be with somebody else and make a lot of money doing it, I'm happy. So I think that's what drives me and motivates me.
Great. Well, you know what they say when you're selling, which I do, you're actually solving someone else's problem.
Exactly.
Right. So what was what were your first challenges, all three of you? Very short answers, please.
So
when you started, what were the challenges?
So the first challenge was having the guts to do that, to move out of a fixed, pensionable, government, good-paying job and start your own thing. And the challenges along the way are, who are your customers, right? How are you going to finance heavy investments? Because in our industry, you buy trucks and trailers and all that are worth millions of dollars. And all of that meant you had to be really determined, courageous, and really want to get there and not worry about adversity and any fears in there.
Thank you, Shernaz. I think the main thing when we started Verify Chain, which is the real tech startup, we had 5 people who started this company. It was my idea, and I got a few people to invest with me. But one of the things we didn't realize is, and that's the advice I give everybody, is choose your partners wisely. Because the 2 of the guys, one of them was our son, but he had to get out because of conflict of interest for work, so he moved out of the company. But the other 2 were lazy sods. And every time they wanted to do something, they would just, we'll do it tomorrow, we'll do it day after, we'll give it to you next week. And this was going on and on and on. The other thing we found was, after we got rid of those 2 lazy guys, we had to go out to the market. And being a very tech-heavy product that we were bringing out, at the cutting edge of technology, actually, we had to go to the market to find someone. And we found a vendor, a company in India. What we didn't realize was those guys took us for a huge ride. Huge ride is huge ride. They took our pants down, literally. So they built us the software as per our specifications, and the next thing we know is I'm going to a customer demo. I get there, I get my tech person, another Parsi guy whom I had employed at that time, and he's starting the thing, and he can't get it to work. And we found out later, and this was, and my tech partner is coming today from Washington, D.C. to see me. And he was a guy who actually bailed us out, at a cost, of course. But what happened was these guys had copied the code from IBM, word for word, word for word. So if Hormurzd was written in the code here, Hormurzd was written in our code. If Mary was written in the code here, Mary was written in our code. Everything the same. And they had actually got a footnote there, which these idiots didn't even delete in our GitHub library, which basically said, this is a trial code, not for sale. And they literally ripped us off. So tens of thousands of dollars later, we realized that we were up the creek without a paddle. But my tech partner, who is a company called Clever One, we found him, we did a global search, and we were at a wit's end. And we were going to give up, but that's
good on you. That's what entrepreneurs have to be, resilient. I think that's one of the important characteristics. How much do you have to tell us?
So I just out of university, I'm 24, and I obviously don't have money to start a company. I moved to London, did not know anybody. So I figured, I'm a Parsi, there are rich Parsis in London. How do I get access to them? So I hustled. The first person
He's
I met,
good at it.
The first person I met was Shernaz. Honestly, yeah. And she invited me to the WZCC. I didn't know what the WZCC was at the time. And what I did was I said, okay, there must be like these, it's a rich commerce environment. There are rich people in London. Let me pitch. That's what I did. And every single person I met at that event, I don't know what the event was, but I know that I spoke to everyone and shook hands with them. Eventually, one person was interested. That person became my first investor, and the stories from there. But yeah, it's very difficult because you're an immigrant in a very different country. So the challenges are not just, oh, can I start a company, but also I need to stay in the country. A lot of people telling me to go back, do my master's, and then study. You're a kid. What are you going to build a company? But here I am. So, yeah.
Yep. Great. So all three of you are at different stages in your businesses. So Varun, tell us something about your startup. I mean, I know it's on the verge of profitability, which is amazing in 2 years.
Speaking of hustle, I wasn't allowed on the Tiger's Den, so I figured out a way to pitch right now. So if
and
there's
I'm
any,
his fairy godmother
of course,
because I'm allowing him to.
thanks to Shernaz. But I'll make this really quick. Hi, my name's Varun. I'm the founder of Let's Level Up.
Briefly, Varun.
Yeah,
Okay.
I promise you it won't be too long. Essentially what we do is we merge 5 to 7 different tools all under one roof so that service-based businesses can run their entire operations and marketing really effectively. Last year we turned over 1.5 million. This year we're hoping to double that. So the fundamental problem that any service-based business will face, and typically we focus on coaches, consultants, course creators, anything in the education space, is 2 things. The first is there are too many tools that you have to use to actually run a business. So it's a big headache. And the second is you actually have to get business once you get those tools in place. So there's marketing and sales agencies that will promise you the earth, moon, and the sun, but they don't deliver. And so essentially, a service-based business will spend at a minimum 25,000 to 24 to 30,000 a year in just agencies and tools. That's a big problem, a big headache. And that's why we said, what if we can reimagine this? What if there's just one tool that does all of this for you? So that's what our tool does. It merges 5 to 7 different tools, from website builders to email automation to email marketing. And then we've also built our own AI that sits inside the actual platform that will actually help you with the sales and the marketing, right from creating posts to actually publishing posts and engaging with your leads. We have actually proven these results. So our AI Nova is actually helping people. These are businesses that were not businesses when they started. So Marissa, she's now become a millionaire on our platform. Mo quit his job and is now doing this full time. He does 50K a month with us. And Justin, the lists are endless. These are real, legit people. So if you actually want me to connect you with them, I'm happy to as well. In the last 1.5 years since we've actually started building this thing, we've grown to over 1,000 customers. We've got a 70% efficiency rate, so it takes you 70% less to actually run and manage your business, and you can grow it much faster. And we've turned over 1.5 million in annual revenue in 2024. We have a track record. All 3 of us are actually business people. We split between product, tech, and marketing, and that kind of shows in the results that we have as well. What we're doing right now is we're actually raising a small amount of money to actually grow. So we're about a month away from profitability. What we're doing is we're raising a small, about $150,000 round. 50K has already been committed. Now, if anybody in the room is an investor and wants to invest in this company, because it will grow, we will make it, please do find me. I'm Varun Balsara. I'll be around here as well. By the way, I'm also a practicing priest. So if you want to help a young morbid and a young entrepreneur, reach out, please.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your pitch. Hormurzd, do you want to, can we have, I think it's going to be very short, isn't it? Because you're already on Tiger's Den.
Yeah, it was a 1-minute video.
So tell us something about your business.
Okay, so Verify Chain is basically in the identity management business. Now, everybody out here knows that if you get your ID compromised, the trouble you have in trying to retrieve it. We had our ID compromised last year, and that was not because of technology. Our papers were stolen from the accountant's office, and our ID got hacked, and literally all our shares got wiped out. Lucky we caught it in time. So imagine if you lost your identity, it takes a long time to get it back. So we are trying to do identity management in a different way, in a decentralized manner. Today's identity is in a is in a centralized data system. So if you hack one, you get through the whole lot. So we had 2 large hacks in Australia, just to name. Medibank, our largest private insurer, got hacked. 4 million customers' data got leaked, including their medical records, everything on the dark web. Optus, our second largest telecommunications carrier, another 4 million customers on the dark web. So, including one of our relatives who had come from India, who had a prepaid SIM with Optus, their data got hacked. So what we do here is a decentralized. So when I say decentralized and zero knowledge proof, is basically you can verify that this is Hormurzd, but you don't know anything about Hormurzd except that he's verified, and his credentials are verified through government service. And that's where we come in, because if you hack one server, and we've got 5 servers running, and mind you, we are pre-revenue. So once we get to revenue, and we are actually doing a trial at this point of time with the Australian government for age verification. We are one of 50 companies globally selected to do the trial. And as I speak, the kids will be waking up in Australia and working on our system just now. We have had, I would say, 650 students who've verified our system and done the age verification. But talking about servers here, if you hit one server, you'll never get any of the data, because the other 4 or 5 servers will reject you, because this is using decentralized or hyperledger technology, so blockchain technology. So that's where we come in.
That's amazing.
A gap in the market.
Yeah, there's a gap in the market. Wonderful. Phil, you've already had a very successful business. You exited with loads of money. So where are you now?
So after leaving American Water in 2014, I started another company called Orgatech Energy. And at Orgatech Energy, I provide consulting services to provincial, federal governments, as well as to the private sector in the way of organics resources management and anaerobic digestion conversion to energy. So what we're doing is we take wastes from organics, food waste, and we convert it into renewable natural gas or electricity that we can put back into the line. So those are the things that keep me busy. These days I do it at my own time and my own leisure, but there's a lot of work out there for people to do, and the whole environmental engineering field is a tremendous opportunity for young people to be getting involved in.
I hope you youngsters are listening. There's money to be made in waste management, right?
Yeah, I guess so. One man's poop is another man's gold, right?
Phil, this question is actually aimed at you. Some years ago, you were in a plane crash, and you were one of the very few who survived. How did that change you? Because it was such a trauma to go through. Can we have the slides on that, please?
Is anyone scared of flying?
Well,
so
have you got it?
Yeah. Okay. So a romantic Indian vacation. So growing up in Africa, I'd never been to India. My wife is from Pune. She remembers her life there, and thanks. And so we said, let's go to India, travel everywhere. You know, we're going to Nepal, Jaipur, New Delhi, the whole works. My aunt lived in Bombay, so Bombay was our first stop. Spent some time there, and then from Bombay, our first destination was Bangalore in southern India. And this was 1990, February 14th, Valentine's Day. So I'm a 33-year-old businessman, right, thinking of big things and being an entrepreneur. And so we started our journey. And this is what happened. Okay, which button did you ask me to press? Down, yeah. So this is sort of what happened. And we came in for landing, and the plane came in 2000.
Phil, you need your mic.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the plane came in 2,000 feet short of the runway. You can see the retaining wall there at the airport, and the plane crashed. We're sitting in row 27. Nobody in front of row 24 survived. There were 100 people killed on the plane, and 30 of us survived. Getting to the edge here. Getting on the edge. It's the story of my life. So then This is what it looks like as we're running. Here is a burning engine that flew off the plane. And and that's what it looked like a few minutes later. This is what our parents are seeing here in Canada. My wife's parents in Mississauga, and my parents, and they get wakened up by this crash. They go on CNN, and this is what they're seeing. So they're saying, hey, they're done. So as a matter of fact, all the friends and families had got together at Mom's house to start doing services and things like that, thinking of the worst. Anyway, that's how the good-looking me back in my younger days with a mustache. So there is fate and destiny if you believe in it. That we learned out of it. To answer your question, nobody in front of row 24 survived. As I said, the pilots, everybody were killed. We were in the wrong seats. We were supposed to be at the front of the plane. And as we get to the departure ticket lounge, the lady there is saying smoking or no smoking. Smoking is at the back of the plane, back in the day, 1990. And I'm preparing my answer, and just as I come up, it's 12 o'clock noon, and the shift changes. And a new girl comes on, and she doesn't ask me the question. And she gives us the smoking boarding pass. We're sitting there as usual, everything is late in India. I pull out my boarding pass, I said, crap, they give us smoking. So I get up to change it. And my wife says, it's only an hour's flight. We'll bear it. And so they said, the headlines there said, smoking saves their lives. So I've no problem with smokers. We end up in the Air Force Hospital in Bangalore, and I'll tell you, it's better than any hospital I've experienced here in Canada. The Bangalore Air Force Hospital, they looked after us really well. We were there for a few days with minor injuries. But what it does is it gives you a totally new outlook in life. And I talk about this at my work occasions and social occasions. It gives you a new meaning to life, right? Where you learn to appreciate every day. That you don't start planning for years and years ahead of time. And as a young person, I was one of those victims thinking about, what am I going to do in 5 years? And every day comes, and these are the intersections of life that you don't understand, that we don't understand, that happen, that you don't know where you're going to be tomorrow. So we hear the birds sing, and we enjoy life to the best we can. And that sort of changed our approach to our personal lives. Now, from an operations point of view, there were several fatal errors that were made along the way. So as the plane comes into land, this is an Airbus. This is 1 month old, the plane. The captain, Gopuchkar, has 25,000 hours of flying experience on Boeings. The plane is completely fly-by-wire, right? It's all computerized. He pushes a button to come in descend mode. He does that at 30,000 feet. As he gets to land, he forgets that he has to push the button, and there is 7 seconds before the engines and wings and everything gets ready for land. So he actually crashes in descend mode at 350 kilometers per hour. And that's why he's short of the runway, and he comes straight down. And luckily, the undercarriage came off, and so it didn't sort of somersault, and we jumped out. The stewardess, both her legs and both her arms were broken, and she opened the door for us. We met her in the hospital after that. And young stewardess, a Hindu lady, and we said, so is this the end of your career? She goes, no, I'm meant to go back up. When I'm fixed, I'm going to go back up. That's sort of her destiny, right? She believed in that. And so on the ground, after the plane crashes, the first thing that happens is there's an announcement in Bangalore airport that the plane from Goa crashed. So you've got wailing people, family from the Goan plane, and then they had said, no, this is a plane from Bombay. So first, communications, okay? Critical in any business, communications. Second, technology. The firefighters, that came to the gate. You saw that retaining wall? He didn't have the key to the gate. So instead of ramming through the gate, he goes around the long way. He comes on, turns on his pumps. There's no pressure in the fire pump. So they did this, they do these risk analysis, and they figured that had the fire department worked the way it was supposed to, they could have saved an extra 20 lives through the algorithms that they use. So all along, you see errors in technology acquisition and training right from the pilots. So when we start talking about technology, and in my business, we created a lot of technologies, and I've patented some of them. You always have to make sure that technology goes hand in hand with the human resources and the skills and the training that goes along with it. Otherwise, technology is useless.
Thank you so much, Phil. This is something I've really been thinking about when you told me, because it does change your life. I'd like to ask all three of you this question, maybe because I'm a gambler myself. Is there an element of gambling in becoming an entrepreneur? Varun?
Yeah, I think so. There's calculated risk that you take, and sometimes it can go extremely wrong. Most of the times it will go wrong. And you only have to be right once. So it's about how long can you stay in the game. And every day is a gamble in this world, because there's no playbook, there's no path. You can ask advisors, but they only know what they know. And that's the game of business.
Hormurzd, do you think there's an element of gambling?
Yes, this is a gamble, because this is high-tech stuff here, and the money involved is huge. So yes, it's a gamble. I'm not much of a gambler in life. I'm actually a risk professional when it comes to managing risk for organizations. But this is one risk I have not, I have sort of ignored, or maybe decided to take it on. But the only gambling I really do in real life is playing the tax lotto. I hope Uncle George comes someday.
Phil, are you a gambler?
Not normally, but in business, a calculated gambler, because you have too many other dependencies on you. If you were to be irrational, then your family is at stake, you're at stake. Gambling is tied to hard work, luck, determination, focus. So you can be a gambler, but if you don't work for it, it's not going to happen. So.
Right, okay. So all three of you came away from your country of birth. Do you think you would have achieved such success if you had stayed where you were born, basically? Hormurzd?
I reflect on that quite a bit, and I personally think Australia has given me lots of good opportunities, and I'd like to thank Australia for taking me in. So yes, India would have been a bit more difficult, because I could honestly say that when I was in Ferguson College in Pune doing my final year of BSc, I had the biggest discrimination in out there, where a professor who hated anybody who was not Maharashtrian. And he was our quantum physics professor. And I don't know how I got 40% in that particular paper. I had to get 40%. That was all I needed. And I think I got 40%. So I think I've achieved more in Australia than I would have done in
Varun, coming to the UK at such a young age?
Yeah, I think there's a theory of effectuation in entrepreneurship, which is it's like saying, I'll open the fridge and I'll see what's there in the ingredients, and then I'll make the food, rather than saying, I'll go to the supermarket to fetch this and fix a recipe. I think that sort of theory has always stuck with me. So I think no matter where you place me, I'll kind of figure it out, and that's something that I'm confident of saying. Now, obviously, being in a country like the UK, there are many advantages. So obviously, you take use of them. But if I was in India, would things be different? Maybe, maybe not. But like my consistency of like work would have stayed the same. And when you talk about luck, it's essentially just increasing the surface area that you touch. And the more work you do, the luckier you will get. So one way or another, you'd figure it out.
Well done. Well, to me, I think I'm really lucky being born a Zoroastrian. I really do. So I was wondering if your faith played any part in your life and business.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Because I think what our religion teaches us is a way of life based on good morals, ethics, the whole good words, good thoughts, good deeds. And in life, at every part and every point of your business or social life, you meet with people, you have to treat them with honesty, credibility, respect. And that's what our religion teaches us. And I think if you carry on the teachings of Zoroastrianism, I think it's of great success. I mean, at every walk of life I go into, whether it's a customer or somebody that knows I'm Zoroastrian or a Parsi, you get that different sense of respect even, that, oh, you guys are very honest people and you're this and that. And I just, to your previous question, I worked for the United Nations as well and have traveled the world dealing with water and wastewater issues. And there is no other country that I would rather be than in Canada. It's absolutely the best country in the world. And I'm sure a lot of you who have lived in your respective countries would say the same. But what we've been able to achieve here is, really wouldn't have been achievable in Africa or wherever it was. Yeah.
Varun, how about you? Does your faith play a part?
I think 2 years back, if you had asked me the question, no. But, there was a bit of a traumatic incident that took place in my life. And I think I went through a phase where I was like, there's no answer other than prayer. And I picked up the book and I started praying again. And that's when I also got into...
But you're an ordained priest.
I'm an ordained priest. And 2 years back, I think that whole shift made me start praying and getting more involved in the community. So now, 100%, and I'm super proud to be a Zoroastrian. I live and breathe it. I'm more than happy practicing my prayers and actually praying regularly as a priest, doing jashans, etc. So
yeah, 100%. I can
100%.
vouch for that because he does come to our Zoroastrian center and does the prayers, which is wonderful to have young people do this.
Yes,
Hormurzd.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm a proud Parsi, very proud Zoroastrian. I think of our heritage. When we were in Iran, our forefathers who traveled the seas to come to India, with what difficulty they would have settled in. Then I look at the house of Tatars, and my father being a Tatar employee, Anaita being a Tatar employee, my father-in-law being a Tatar employee, and the ethics that they bring into play. I'm proud. I do my prayers. I'm not super religious, but I do my prayers every day. I think that we should be true to our faith at all times, be honest. Sometimes honesty might come out as being rude, but I'd always think that being honest and being upfront in your dealings, especially when you're things like paying taxes, etc. My father, being a chartered accountant, would always say, minimize your tax, never avoid it. So that's the main thing that I always take to life, that be honest in everything you do.
I agree, actually. I run a recruitment agency, and when I go out and see clients, they say, what's your unique selling point? And I say it's honesty, because I named my company Verity, which means honesty, and it's part of our religion. It really is. So finally, we've only got 5 minutes, guys. Tell us and give us any tips, hacks to all the youngsters here who want to become an entrepreneur and what it's like running a successful business. Go on, Varun. Do you have any tips? I know it's early days.
I don't have tips. I think the one thing that I'll just say is, just start. You over-intellectualize too much in your head, and most people want to be entrepreneurs rather than entrepreneurs. Just do, and the road will come. And I think most people underestimate the power of just doing. So if there's one thing you take away, I'd love for you to take away that.
Hormurzd?
I would say, when you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to be in a field where you're not where it's a little out of your comfort zone, you must know the right people. So get the right people on board. And if you're dealing with organizations, and that's my learning, is you need to vet them out 100% or more than 100%, because that's the key learning. That's the key thing that set us back by 2-3 years. And it's something that I always take back. And if you want to do in the tech business, if you're in, learn to code, guys, learn to code. That's the key to it. Because at the end of the day, you will save tons of money when you do it yourself. and get the right people.
Bill, how about you?
So the key thing here is have the courage to move forward. You'll have various setbacks coming at you from every direction, like we did too, from banks, investors, whoever. But make sure that you treat your customers well, and you have the courage, innovation, be creative, be the best at what you are, and try and do something that's different. You know, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery that mediocrity gives to greatness. So just be good and be the best at what you are. So, yeah.
Well, at this juncture, I just want to tell you a very funny story, which I think is quite hilarious. I am the head of membership for the Worshipful Company of Entrepreneurs, so I interview everyone. And this South Indian guy came. He was an entrepreneur. He's got a very successful IT company. And I sort of started asking, when did you start your entrepreneur career? And he told me, this is really hilarious, at the age of 13, he was in Bangalore, and he received a card from his aunt in the UK, and it was a funny birthday card. He'd never seen one, because until then, in South India, all the cards had either Jesus Christ or Mary or some kind of Hindu god on it. So he thought about it, and he asked his aunt to send as many Hallmark cards as she could find in the UK. So she got this bundle, and he started printing them without knowing anything about copyright or anything. Became extremely successful. He had 73 shops all over South India who were selling Hallmark cards, but without Hallmark at the back. And then Hallmark had already started distributing their cards in North India. In the 2000s, they came to South India, and when their salesmen were going to all these stationery shops, they saw Hallmark cards with someone else's name, and they found out who he was. He was only 19 then, and they said, "We're going to sue you." But then they realized that they already were marketing their cards. They were very successful. So they said to him, "We will buy this business from you. You give us your whole business," which he did and sold for quite a few crores, actually, which made him come to the UK. So it just shows there was a gap in the market. He took it and was very successful. And Hallmark, got a ready-made business in the South. So thank you, everyone. It's been great being on the panel.
Thank you.